for watching. So basically what's happening is this is a Worship Keys live Q&A, and I am basically setting this up in a very simple way. Awesome. So this YouTube live video will only show my keyboard view using the app Chordy. It's a really cool app that shows you exactly what I play. And then my live video is actually just broadcasting on the inside the Inspired Keys Academy Facebook group live video. And I see Tracy's joined us. Hello. I will basically call out your name if you have joined us live inside our Facebook group, but not on YouTube, because this is basically a Q&A for members only. So if you have a question on Worship Keys, but not on YouTube, because this is basically a Q&A. Yep, so strange. I tried to pause the video because I'm trying to open this in another video on in another tab on my laptop, and it's just quite a lot of things going on, but I am pretty much settled right now. So guys, I just want to say a huge welcome as you join us today. So I'm just, oh wait, hang on. I just realized my question, my invitation message on the YouTube chat is not quite, there's a bit too many characters. Okay, so but now it's all sent out. So basically on YouTube Live, if you're watching us, huge welcome. I know there are a couple watching right now, but I will not be answering Worship Keys questions on YouTube. This is a members only live Q&A, and so I'll only be answering questions from the Inspired Keys Academy members within Facebook group only. And hello, Tracy, great to see you. Those who are joining us live in our Facebook group, you have priority to ask your Worship Keys questions, because I really want to honor how you are taking precious time, especially I know a lot of you are in very different time zones from me, which also means this might be a ridiculous and crazy hour in the middle of the night that you are waking up just for. And I really, really appreciate and honor that. And to just show my appreciation, I want to make sure that I answer your Worship Keys questions first. So if you are watching this as an Inspired Keys Academy member and you have a Worship Keys question, please go ahead and type that into our Facebook group live chat right now. Every now and then I will be checking our chat to see if there are any questions. But otherwise, if there isn't any, I do have a little list of compiled questions over the last 2 weeks or so to answer people's questions that they've asked me on email or on our Facebook group posts itself. So go ahead, I will be checking. No questions are being asked on the live chat right now, so I'm going to jump into our first question from Amy. Now, before I do that, those on YouTube Live, if you want to join in and get your Worship Keys questions answered as well, I would love for you to join the Inspired Keys Academy, and you can do that at youtube.com. I mean, inspiredkeys.com/join. And the link is on the YouTube chat box as well. So let's jump into Amy's question. So basically, Amy, who is a new member of the Inspired Keys Academy, huge welcome to you, Amy. I know she can't join us today, but the replay link is always available. And also a better version recording is available, recorded from the screen of my laptop. So that shows you in real time what I play. And that should help, because I know the YouTube link, yes, it shows what I am playing, but it kind of lags a little bit and you may not get all the details. And this better version recording is also going to be kept within the Inspired Keys Academy in our members only area. Okay, so Amy basically has shared with us a version of the way she plays Lead Me to the Cross from Hillsong. And my purpose of this video answer right now is to give her suggestions on how to improve and how to make it sound even better. So let's go ahead and listen to the way Amy plays that for a little bit. at this point, I can see that she's playing in the key of D, and my comments will be, and I've already told Amy about this. This is about her pedaling. The sustain pedal at the moment, it's kind of not clearing as clearly as it should be. As a result, we are hearing some overlapping bass notes, and the problem with the bass notes is that they do get very cloudy or murky if there are too many layers overlapping. So what I'm hearing, okay, so what's happening is I should probably lower the octave of my Novation. The problem is I'm using a 61 key, and that's not the best kind of sound that I want, really. So hang on a sec. What was I doing? Why did I do this? I wasn't trying to do this. Okay, hang on. I wasn't going to use separate windows. Yes, I'm going to do single windows, but I am going to turn off sustain on overlay. Okay, cool. Okay, and yes, my key was in the key of D. Yep. So I think there was a little pattern. Okay, great. Amy, basically, I feel that because you're at the start of the song, da 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 da. Go ahead and start a whole lot more sparse, okay? You don't have to do too much because you want to leave space to grow. So what I will probably do is da, 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 da. And then the next section, which is the pre-chorus, which I believe is so then only in the pre-chorus I am putting in my 1, 2, 3, 4, the chord comping pattern, the real simple every beat kind of chord that I know you can do, because I want to have a sense of progression, that we're growing from really little movement to a little bit more movement and then something more complex as the song unfolds. Now, if you really can't stand how it's very empty and sparse at the very start of the verse, what I will probably do is then to introduce the comping at the start. So maybe da, da, something like that. So that gives it a little bit more movement at the start of the song if you really don't want it so sparse. Okay, moving on to the next bit of the feedback for your playing. Okay, so you know how you have all these sort of in-between notes like, sorry, not this one. Yes, I'm screen sharing. Sorry, I shouldn't be going here. I should be going here. Okay, so you have like, and then you've got this whole, yeah. So those da-da-dum and da-dum, I guess I'll call them fills. You could leave them to the second time because, and I usually mean with like, I mean like a second verse, because that allows you to hear something a little bit different than a simpler version. Okay, so I will do that, but not so early, because then otherwise you kind of give too much of this, the excitement away, and then you don't have much space to grow and create enough contrast the next time you play the verse. Okay, so I'm listening to your rhythms and I'm hearing bum dum da da dum. Dum, dum, dum. So 2, 3, 4, and 1. That's not 3, 4. Okay, so I'm hearing dum dum da da, which I feel is a little bit of an offbeat kind of rhythm, and that's not wrong, but I'm thinking maybe you can start simple, because this is, after all, the first pre-chorus, right? So I'm thinking, if I were you, I'll probably leave that for the second time again, to create more contrast. Always start like a whole lot simpler. So I'll probably do 1, 2, cross, and then I'll go on into the rest of the song. So then if I were to do this a second time as a pre-chorus, then I'll probably do that fancy rhythm, which is everything I want. You know, I'll add something more fancy the second time. Okay, great. So at this point, you've entered into the chorus, and what we're seeing is you're still at about the same kind of keyboard range, which is okay. Now, the problem with that is that you've been using this keyboard range before. So when you went into the chorus with that keyboard range again, which is around like sort of like from sort of middle C, middle D area into the bottom parts, it doesn't sound like a new section. It sounds very much like the same kind of range, same kind of sound as you've done before. If you watch the contrast course inside the Academy, you will see that it creates a sense of monotony because you're still hearing the same kind of sound. So when I go into a new area, like a new section, such as a new chorus section like you just did, I'll reach up a little bit higher and create something of a different sound. So, so if this was your range, the usual one that you use for pre-chorus, right? And then now I'm going to the chorus, lead me to the cross. So adding that little A on top to create like a new area, a new keyboard range zone in your playing can make all the difference. So for the whole entire chorus, I'll probably keep sustaining that A on top. Third time, lead me to the cross. Maybe at this point I'll move down a little bit. Lead me to the cross, right? And then I'll sort of start to move downwards again, because I think the song kind of, from what I remember about it, it's a little bit on the slightly darker side because of all the minor harmonies. So yeah, that's just my opinion. So yeah, these are just some ways that you can make that front bit a little bit different. Yep, so for what you've been playing at this whole area, keep your right hand still kind of on the regular beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, instead of having the fancy rhythms that you're currently doing. Dum, da da dum, da da dum. Yeah, so don't do so much of that. Okay, so now you've come into the second verse, right? If you watch my video about chord voicing, there is another rule about how to make your playing just sound a little bit better in terms of your accompaniment. Try to keep within the same kind of voicing, okay? At the moment, what I'm seeing about the way you're phrasing your chords is that you are changing your voicings very frequently. What the rule basically goes like is, if you have, okay, so let's go into like the second verse, right? So you've got like a B minor, right? So what you want to do is to stick around this range a whole lot. Don't move too far away with every chord that you play. So these notes, try to keep them really close. So what I'm seeing is, this is how you're playing. Right? So what I'm seeing is da 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 da. Why is my software stuck? Right, so that's a lot going on your right hand. You've got the da da da, and you've got the da da da. Yes, they're all kind of nearby, but the result is that it's kind of shifting around a lot. What I will probably advise you to do is keep it a little bit simple. If you have to play those movements, that's fine, but keep the general voice about the same. So this is what I mean. Da, 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 da. My next chord will probably be da, 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 da. So can you see how that D on the top is still going on? Da, 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 da. And then, so if you really want to do the movements in between, keep that D on top and keep your like bass note kind of like walking down by step. Da, 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 okay, so basically try to keep like the top line consistent because that gives it a little bit less of a movement generally. Yes, you have a lot of movements as an inner line in between like an alto voice. As you told me, you prefer the low sounds as well, and so do I. So I love doing these inner movement lines, but keep your top line quite steady and quite stable. Play that quite a bit, and you're probably going to find that it sounds a little bit less busy or less messy even. Okay, moving on to the next bit. Yep, so because this is your second pre-chorus, I'm thinking you could actually start to grow because we've come to the point where we're sort of almost at 50% mark of the song, or maybe a bit more than that. So I think the range can grow. So instead of da, 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 so your topmost note's kind of still below the middle C-ish, you can actually move it up to like the next inversion. So maybe everything the world tells you. And that's where you then have the permission to grow even more. Instead of having that A on the top line, lead me to the cross. You've now protruded onto the topmost note going up to like the really high D, because every time you invert, you sort of go up to the next inversion of. So it's kind of like half an octave up or half an octave down every time. So you don't contrast too much. So I really hope that that made sense to you, that, you know, because we've come to the point where the song could afford to grow and the sound could be a little bit more different than what we've been hearing. To create more contrast. And once again, the basic principle is when you don't have enough contrast, it gets monotonous. And what I like about what you're doing here is that, yes, you are trying to show that this is the second time of this, you're doing these sections of the song. And what I'm hearing you play is you're much louder. And that helps. That really works because it doesn't come forth just in terms of dynamics, but also in terms of like a tone. The tone is more strong. It's a little bit more like emphasized, and as a result, it does make people feel like, hey, you know, you're singing it in a very like rousing manner. Then, you know, kind of just keeping it quiet as the first time. The song has grown, and that's good. Keep that dynamic and that energy level up. But be careful with not getting faster at all. The tempo should stay exactly the same from the start to the end. This section, it does get a little bit confusing as to what the chord progressions are. This is the bridge section, right? I can't remember the words, but I know it's which I believe are chords 1, 4, and 5. And here's where you could afford a whole lot more contrast as well. So you could grow. As usual, bridges are the perfect places where things drop dramatically and then they grow dramatically as well. So you could drop dramatically and go na, na, na. keep it really sparse. Don't be afraid to just keep it really simple. And then here's where you grow a little bit more of your right hand. And then so then the rest of the song kind of grows from there. So don't be afraid to try something quite dramatic as you drop into the bridge. Yeah, so basically my comments for the rest of the song will pretty much be about the same. Ideas for how you can grow to a real climax at the rest of the song. Okay, so I'm just going to demonstrate how I will do perhaps the very final chorus in a very complex and very high climactic, dramatic way from the bridge, maybe from the very last bridge. Sorry. Yeah, and I remember the ending of the song was kind of like a very just like, what? It's finished? You know, like just a B minor chord. But yeah, when I went on to a real high, I went up to like a super high range, but just for that section, just because, you know, I'm like you, right? I don't really like the high sounds too much, but I wasn't kind of just banging the same thing all the time. I wasn't doing, because I personally find that a little bit too much, too shrill, really. So I decided to create like a some kind of a pattern on top so that it sounds a little bit more like cohesive. Amy, thank you so much for being so brave to just post a video at the very start. Like basically every Inspired Keys Academy member is encouraged to share an intro of themselves. And most people would just kind of type about where they come from and what kind of worship keys context. Now, Amy has gone up to the next level by recording a video of herself. And not only that, it's a video that's edited. So it's the first part's an intro and the second part's her playing. So I'm absolutely blown away by Amy's enthusiasm. And I know that she's just going to get from glory to glory in her worship keys playing. And I really encourage the rest of the Academy as well. If you're an Inspired Keys Academy member, just don't be afraid and just share. And you can only gain from being brave and sharing and getting feedback. So thank you so much again, Amy. I really appreciate how you shared that. I'm just going to jump onto our chat. And inside our Facebook group chat, I see Matt and Maria has joined us. Hello, hello, everybody. Tracy asks a question. Tracy's watching live, and so all the people who watch live get their questions answered with priority. So Matt, Maria, if you have any worship keys questions, please type that in because I want to make sure to answer your questions first to honor your time here with us. Tracy says, one of our songs for this week is Death Was Arrested. Will you suggest a way to play the last bit chorus and ending? Okay, so confession time, never heard of Death Was Arrested. What I'm going to do, Tracy, is to go ahead and YouTube Death Was Arrested and then listen to it real quick, especially at the last bit. And if you have any version that you want me to listen to, because I can see it is by North Point Inside Out. I'm just going to click the video and go straight on. Now, if Tracy, you have a version that you want me to listen to that's not from North Point, please type it into that. Maybe even just copy and paste the link into our chat, and then I can go straight into that correct reference, because I want to make sure that the answer I give you is as helpful to you as possible. So I've never heard of this song before, but I'm going to zoom straight to the last bit. I'm going straight to like the 75% point of the video. Let's listen. Okay, right. So based on what I can hear, Tracy, this is a great question because I don't know how you guys are going to do it. You know, how this is a live, and we're not even just regular worship context. From what I'm looking at the video, it's a stadium, right? It's very dramatic. And so you can't do like the same kind of dramatic effect in a small-ish or even a large but regular worship service. So my comments will be based on what I'm seeing. I'm checking. Yes, cool. Thanks, Tracy. I can see that you said North Point is good. So I'm just going to use what I saw in the video. So that's really like rah-rah crowd version. So if you guys are really going to just copy that kind of energy, the first bit's easy because there's nothing to do. It's just kind of silence and let the crowd carry the song, right? Okay, so then once they're done, what I'm hearing is the typical really strong kind of very strong beats. And so my general guideline is this: listen to what the drummer is doing and copy what the drummer is doing. But at the same time, another rule that's at play is listen to what the rest of the band is doing. Because it's a very like loud, full band kind of song, that's probably the point where the hero instruments are the drums, the bass, you've got electric, and so the vocals. Now those are the instruments that really should hero. So if I were you, and if I was at the band itself during the concert, let's see, what key was that? No. Yeah, key of B, right? Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just look, here's how I will play it. And so the key's B. I'm just going to change the key here in chordy. So look, I could really do, you know, what I'm hearing the drummer do is bum 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 dum 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 dum. So what you want to do is to mirror and to imitate or to copy that. Typically the drum and bass have to gel together really nice in order for a song to sound very tight. So what I'm hearing is the chord, the drummer's doing da ba 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 ba. So what I'll probably do if I have to play is something like da da da, something like that. However, the question is that really a point that you want to hear the piano like loudly? Because I personally don't think the piano is going to fit in perfectly at that time. Okay, so here's where, if we have to have the piano, I shall go ahead with that assumption unless you tell me otherwise, but I don't see any other comments. But feel free to just have a conversation with me, Tracy, even as you're watching live. I see a few other people. Adam's joined us. Hello, Adam. So cool. I'm just going to go ahead and play that little bit again and just perhaps show you what I would play if it was that section after the crowd singing and carrying the song. Okay, so before the drums went crazy, I'm hearing da, 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 da. So first it was a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then after that the drummers went like double the intensity. So it went 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3, and that's what I will do as well. So octave bass, go as low as your keyboard allows you, and what I've done is I have a 61 key. I've just gone down an octave to create that low enough sound, because if I don't, and if I create this sound, there's just not enough oomph to that. So I'm going to do that. If I really, I mean, I'm just trying an octave lower still. No, that's just too messy. So I probably won't, I'll skip that. I'll go into this. Yeah, just. pump the bass on your left hand. You might need a bit of practice because this does require a bit of dexterity on the fingers. It's almost like, I don't know, playing one of those Chopin etudes where you have to kind of practice your right, because it's a lot of octaves. Not only is it an octave, you have to be very strong and energetic and very on time. You can't be late, you can't be early, you got to be matching the drums exactly. So it does require a little bit of practice. It's not exactly the easiest thing to play. I'm just looking back at the chat to see if you've added anything. Nope. Adam, yes, okay, Adam's got a question and I'll answer that as soon as I finish Tracy's answer. So going ahead to the rest of the video. Okay, so here's what I might do as well that might be different from what the recording is doing, but you know, because I don't seem to hear a lot of treble lines. So what I might do is to create a like a high layer. So since I'm hearing a lot of mid and bass, so here's where you can kind of improvise and add your own thing. Instead of going low now, I'm going to have like, maybe I'm going high. So what you can do is, if you have a synth, that's going to fit in quite nicely, I think, because it's quite a loud and rowdy kind of song. But then if you don't have a synth, you can always try an octave piano on the really high registers. So something I'm hearing in my head is something like, it's like a 5-5-1, 5-5-1, and we're talking scale degree numbers at this point. So I can imagine that could sound quite nice. And it's just something I came up with like on the fly. So if I were to go back to North Point and sort of go from just before they finish. Okay, so Tracy, I guess that's kind of like what I will do. Now, if you are using something like Mainstage, then use something way more exciting than just piano, right? Because we're so tired of the way piano sounds. We're kind of hearing that a lot. So I have here a Worship Essentials template set up. I have a synth. Now, there are more exciting synths available in this, but because I'm not, unless you want me to, Tracy, the synth I currently have is... Yep, so that's the sound that I can imagine will gel really nicely with that. So yeah, Tracy, let me know if you have any further questions from what I've explained so far. But thank you so much for your question. I'm going to move straight on to Adam's question. Adam says, howdy. And his question is, I should get my computer and MIDI controller this week. Woohoo! Oh my gosh. If you've been saving up, like, I applaud you, just because MacBooks are so expensive. I mean, I'm assuming you're getting a MacBook right now. Yeah, but you are, because your question says you're gonna get like Mainstage, and Mainstage only works with Apple computers. But I still remember it was really painful for me and my wallet when I bought that MacBook Pro just for Mainstage, right? I'm the sort of girl who I like things lightweight, so I was all set to get the MacBook Air, which was also way cheaper. But what happens is you can't do an Air live performance with good enough stability. So then lots of all these like tech people tell me, get a better one. And I'm like, cool, I did. And it's been no regrets, just because it's a very stable laptop, and I don't treat it the best. Like, my husband keeps telling me to please shut down the computer. I just keep like closing the laptop like without turning it off, and it's just bad practice. But it's still like behaving well. So I should probably, you know, like, that's a good reminder that I should probably shut it down properly. So anyways, Adam, congrats. I'm so excited. And I'm just curious, what MIDI controller are you going to get? I almost, if I could, I mean, looking at all the discussions and David Wettrick going for a Nectar 88, I just feel like if I could, I would want to invest in an 88 key just because it's so much more fun doing, yes, you do touch the lower and higher ends very few times in comparison with the middle bits, but it's a lot more fun to get up to extreme ranges occasionally. So I wonder what MIDI controller you're gonna get. If you could just type it into the chat and let us know, that would be really cool. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with my Novation 61. It's nice and stable. It hasn't disappointed me yet, so I'm really happy with that. So Adam's question is Worship Essentials or Sunday Keys better to start with? Now this is like a difficult question because both of them are really good. I don't know about other people's experience, but my experience is when I use Sunday Keys, I find that for some reason, it always starts up with a question like, there are further sounds to download. Do you want to download now? And it's very strange. I'm not sure if it's like my internet connection or something, but when I click download now, it disappears. I don't know what's going on in the background. And when I restart Sunday Keys, it shows me that question again. So the impression I get is it's like a really large file and it takes up or it uses up more CPU. I'm not sure if this is correct. When I use Worship Essentials, I don't seem to have that problem. So really, this is not like an official answer. And I'm very sure David from Sunday Keys, Sunday Sounds will be able to give like a perfect solution to this problem. It's just I haven't really like dealt with it properly yet. But so far, I will say I enjoy both a lot. There are sounds in Sunday Keys that I wish was available in Worship Essentials that isn't. Gosh. Yes, I'm trying to be really like objective here, but Adam, yeah, okay. So what I like about Sunday Keys is they've got cool kind of ambient guitar sounds, whereas Worship Essentials really sticks to a lot more of the keyboard-based kind of sounds. We're talking organ, piano and pad just goes without saying, but synths of many kinds, and of course, various kinds of pulses. But Sunday Keys gives you the flexibility of combining different instruments as well. So that's really, really flexy, right? So if you are the sort of person who likes things very flexible, you like to explore different kinds of combinations of sounds, and you want to be able to mix and match, Sunday Keys is for you. What I've seen for myself in Worship Essentials is that they've got very nice templates that fit nicely for most worship sets, but it does limit the kind of sounds available. So I guess this is my most kind of like rational advice about the two awesome worship templates. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but some of the videos that I record live from my services on Sunday when I volunteer, I can't decide. Like sometimes I'm like, this week I'm just going to use Sunday Keys, but next week I'm going to use Worship Essentials. And when I do use one, sometimes I miss something about the other. So I guess this is the best answer I have for you, Adam. Let me know what you think based on this answer. But yeah, this is just my experience. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions from that. So thank you, Adam, for that question. So I shall move straight on to the next question. And today's next question is from David Wettrick. There's lots of Davids around, so I have to kind of mention the last name. And David Wettrick has like been amazing. He started from like not having a lot to investing in main stage, MIDI controller, and he's jumped fully onto like main stage right now. Their church has never used any live music. Can you believe it? Their church has been using tracks all this time, which is amazing, but they've recently jumped onto live music and David was serving in it. And so I'm really like absolutely blown away by just the thought that this is happening. And David, really kudos to you for like jumping on to main stage and making such a big difference to your church's worship atmosphere. And I'm really, really pleased. Those of you who are watching live on YouTube, there is a main stage course available inside the Inspired Keys Academy. So go ahead and check that out at inspiredkeys.com/join. I'd love to have you in the Academy, and you could really benefit from the main stage course as well. But David has been, he's asked for just some ideas on how to play Oh Come to the Altar in the key of B for altar call. right? So very appropriate, I guess, because, you know, it's all come to the altar, right? But when you play for altar call, I'm imagining a setting where it's really solemn. People are coming to the front of the church near the stage getting prayer, and you don't want to be very obtrusive. You don't want to play stuff that's in your face or too distracting. You don't want to play anything too busy. You want to create an atmosphere that is very conducive for people to hear from God. And perhaps, I don't know about how other people do it, but I like to use that moment to kind of give hints about the song I'm playing. So sometimes I might play full bits of the melody, but sometimes I'll kind of keep it a little bit surprised, a little bit mysterious, and not give the full melody away. I might create a little riff and based out of the melody that I feel is suitable, and I'll probably play the riff. So no one really knows what song I'm playing because I'm not outrightly playing the melody at some bits. But sometimes I just leave the guesswork out and just play the whole song as it is. So, okay, so here's probably just an idea of how I will play "Oh Come to the Altar." First up, it's in the key of B, so that's all good. Sorry, I'm gonna turn off that synth. I will also be turning up my pad, so no, I don't hear the pad. Oops, sorry, that's the electric piano. There we go, that's the pad. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so David, here's a way I would play the "Oh Come to the Altar" in the key of B. So because it's altar call as well, and I'm assuming you're the keyboardist only playing, there's no one else to play with, so that means you don't need to have a click track. You could be very flexible with your tempo, something like, I'm not going to rush it, I'll just kind of hold on to the B sus chord. And maybe when I feel like it's ready, I'll play like a, kind of just to give a hint that the song's coming up soon. I've got the pinky playing the F sharp and holding that on just to create a very cohesive, steady, consistent sound. Okay, maybe at this point I'll feel like the song's starting, and then I will kind of hear the melody in my head, but I won't like go outright into, like, I won't do that because I feel like that's a bit too much going on. I might go into like, and hear the song in my head. Okay, so David, in your recording on Facebook, I'm hearing a lot of da 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 da, which would be the D sharp, F sharp, and G sharp riff that you play. And if I'm not wrong, you play that throughout like the verse. I would suggest not to. So this is just a preference. Like my preference would be to play that riff and reserve it only for like the turnaround. Okay. So as you can see, I finished one round of the song. So I finished the chorus, and the chorus goes like, da 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 da, open wide, right? And then here's the turnaround. And I'll play one more time. And then here's where the second verse starts. And maybe here's where, because I'm not actually singing it, I'll probably start playing a little bit of the tune. Going into the bridge now. Okay, so basically, I'm kind of just like getting into the moment and trying not to talk so much because, you know, this is a moment, right? It's a very important moment to kind of relate to God. I don't want to have to break the flow a little bit. I want to give you a sense of what I will really do if, you know, I'm standing right in front of a lot of people who are just kneeling and praying, possibly crying, lots of conversations going on with God. It's a very sacred moment and you don't want to, I guess, try not to make any mistakes. But I did add a very special chord. It's like a E minor chord. Like, I just love the way that sounded at the end of that bridge phrase. So I kind of sneaked it in a few times, and but it's meant to be like a, you know, like a nice moment, like a, oh, that's a fresh sound, but hopefully not with the intention to distract. And then what I basically wanted to say, David, is if I were playing for an altar call, and you know, I could really just do. Right, because you know, that's the tune, but then it does get a little bit monotonous because it's just a single line melody, and it's not exactly very tuneful in the sense that it's kind of da 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 da. It's lots of the same kind of notes if you play on the tune as well. So I don't know if you realized, but I tried to add in more harmony. Sometimes I just added one other harmony line. Sometimes I added both. So if you look at the course on how to harmonize, which is also a course available inside the Inspired Keys Academy, that will show you the notes that you can choose. So instead of doing that, I play. And it's not really easy because my pinky was kind of holding onto the F sharp on the top the whole time to create a more steady, consistent sound on the very top. If I don't do that, sometimes I find there's just too much movement when the melody line moves up and down. So then I'd rather hold that pinky top note. It's the same thing as what I showed in Lead Me to the Cross with Amy's question. I want to create more of a consistent sound on the top line. And as a result, the melody becomes an inner voice. So that's just something that I would do. I really, really hope you found that helpful, David. Now, I know you're not watching live because it's probably a really late time for you where you are, but I would be Happy to answer any other questions. So feel free to type any questions you have based on what I showed you in this video, but you can share it on our Facebook group. Thank you so much. Cool. Tracy says, thanks, that helps a lot. I'm really glad it did. Adam says, any other patches worth looking into? Adam, I have only used the 2. Now, if you go into thatworshipsound.com, there are a ton of other kinds of sounds. There are all kinds of synths and piano, the Alicia Keys going on. If you subscribe to That Worship Sound and Sunday Sounds, who are the creators of these main stage templates, they have a lot of other things you can do. So, but I will say I've never really gone into those. Primarily because I find that these 2 templates, the Sunday Keys and Worship Essentials, SK and WE for short, I find them really comprehensive. They've got most of the sounds you want. The rest of the sounds, yes, you can go check those patches out. What I find is, like, if it's like a synth kind of focus, you only get a lot of synth sounds. And that's, in my opinion, not the most practical kind of thing to do, because if you show up in worship, in a worship set, but you only have synths, and then you can't really do like the piano and pad, then that kind of defeats the purpose of what our role is. We need to be versatile to have sometimes synth when it's synth appropriate, but most times you get the anchor of the pad, you even get the drone. So it's really important to have all of that most of the time in a worship set. But if you want to switch between, like, sometimes worship essentials and then sometimes you want to execute a little bit of synth from another template, that then requires you to kind of copy and paste, which then might confuse the whole entire setup of the main stage template. You do have all these kinds of effects and delays working in the background. When you copy and paste different files of different templates into one concert, it can get really tricky. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That's my experience with it when I was toying a lot with it for a stadium evangelistic event. And so I copied and pasted a ton of different kind of concerts into one, patches into one concert, and that was just really risky. What I learned from that was I'd rather work within a constraint of a restricted set of sounds in one main template than to copy and paste. If I really want to, I could choose to shut that whole template and start a new one altogether. That kind of stabilizes everything. But if, you know, David or Abel from the creators of the templates can kind of like give us some comments on this, that would be really helpful, because I would love to learn on how to create more of a different variety available in each template. So I get what you mean, Adam, and yeah, that's my answer for you. Let me know if you need any other questions if you have any questions from that. Yes, Lecter LX88 is the one. That's kind of what I've heard David Wettrick say is very useful. So if I could, maybe in future when I upgrade. Tracy says, yeah, okay, great. Thank you so much for posting the sound library content video. Tracy says, here's a link to a video to help with your error messages about adding sounds. Thank you very much, Tracy. I really appreciate that. I got the messages too and resolved it by adding a few sounds into main stage. The advice on adding additional orchestra, piano, and world sounds resolved the issues for me. Thank you so much. I'm probably going to have to look into that link after this live video. So thank you, Tracy. Really appreciate the time you took. I'm going to go on to the next question now. And the next question is from Robert. Robert asks, and let me just increase the font size a little bit. Okay, so here's an interesting thing. Robert says, it seems like you are a fan of the Everlasting 1 and 5. I am actually, and it's not that I just like it. Basically, my job is to imitate how actual songs sound, right? So when you listen to something, it's a little bit boring for us worship musicians in the sense that our job primarily is to imitate and copy what we hear from recordings. But that also saves us a ton of time for rehearsals, because these bands have already done all the thinking and all the arranging, and we don't have to spend time to reinvent the wheel. So yes, it's boring, but it's also good in a sense. So when I do Everlasting 1 and 5, it's usually because, Robert, I hear the Everlasting 1 and 5 in the songs, and I just basically try to imitate it. So David says, however, you don't use it in every song. How do you determine when to use it and when not to use it, either in a song or a passage? You know, that's a really good question, Robert. Primarily, I imitate what I'm hearing. If the recording has the 1 in 5 sound, I will then use it. If I don't hear it, then I won't use it. So that's, I guess, the short answer. A lot of these things also depend on your description, okay? I used to have a piano teacher who told me, do you think this passage should be soft? Why don't you use your discretion? What do you think, right? So that kind of developed my, I guess, musical or artistic opinion about whether I should do this or I should do that. A lot of times our ear can tell us the answer, okay? And it's interesting. We can play, but we may not be listening because maybe our minds are just busy thinking about, should I do this? Or we're just working on fingerings and all this technical stuff. We're not actually listening to ourselves. What you might find helpful is to press record and listen to how you're playing separately. Because when you listen to how you record, how you're playing, then you could go like, oh, I could really do that. And or maybe I would not use the everlasting 1 in 5. So Robert, here's an issue of discretion. You might want to use it, you might not. Listen to it and see what you prefer. Our preference is one thing, but our job to replicate the sound of a song is another. So whether you use everlasting 1 in 5 or not, this is really a it's like a minor issue, really. As long as your congregation can worship, why not, right? So whatever helps your congregation to be more conducive to their worship as possible. So that's what how I will answer your question. Now, Robert asks another question, which is, I noticed in one of the videos that you mentioned finding a rhythm pattern and sticking to it throughout the entire song. Yes, that's correct. So this is probably a video on how to improvise riffs. However, when I see you and others playing, it doesn't seem like you all are playing the same pattern every bar for that section. There are variations and changes. And yes, you are right, Robert. There are minor variations, but most of it's usually the same. Primarily because sometimes you need to change some of the notes to fit the notes of the chord. The rules of harmony apply. And especially for chord 5, when you have chord 5, you need to have that 7 inside. And so sometimes I'll change my riffs on the right hand to fit a 7 or maybe a 2. And these are all scale degree numbers in order to create a cohesive harmony so that everything sounds good together. So that's a really important rule to follow all the time. So Robert says, do you play a pattern and alternate it with other patterns, every other bar or every third bar, etc.? I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but basically if you do change patterns, how often do you change it within a section, or is there no change and just variations? Again, I noticed you don't play the exact thing in every bar. Yeah, you know, I love it. Robert, you're asking a very detailed question. I really appreciate how you've given a lot of thought to this question. Now I'm just thinking of how I can explain this. When I was a composition major student in uni, it's very rare. Like we would get a ton of people going for performance majors, but I just never felt very confident as a classical pianist. I guess maybe God just maybe created me as a very worship keyboard kind of person. So I feel very awesome playing in front of a million people when it's like a worship genre, but not so much classical. Like I just feel like I'm just gonna trip it and stuff. And that's just my thing. But then I decided to pick composition as a major, and that did not come easy as well. There were many times I felt like writing a composition was like giving birth, and it's not the easiest thing ever. It wasn't really hard to get good grades as well. But one of the things I learned one of the few like everlasting concepts I remembered for the rest of my life about composition is you want to have economy in your motives, okay? So, and a motive would be like a short little phrase that's very iconic to a piece. So like, I don't know, like it could be a da-da-dum, 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 you know, just repeating that sound might remind you, hey, that's the song from where, you know, like the Planet Shaker song, you know, they have a lot of these motifs as well. Every song has a little motive of its own. Or for example, Forever, right, from Kari Job and Bethel, dum, 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 dum. That's a very iconic motive. If you play that, everyone goes, and if they know the song, goes, hey, that's Forever from Kari Job from Bethel. But then you want to have economy, and that would mean you want to use just that one or maybe two motives and use them slightly differently every time, but they need to keep the character. So that's why after that first motive, you're going to get a very similar one, but slightly different. It goes dum, 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 right? So it's like just one note change, but it's very, very characteristic of the song, and it's very economical, where you only keep to one sound. So I guess I'm just going to demonstrate that. I'm not sure about the key really, so I guess I'm just going to keep it simple by keeping it to the key of C. Right, that's the motive for forever, and then the second bit goes right. So right, and then the second bit goes. So, Robert, that's just an example to show you that it's really important to have a little bit of variations, but keep largely everything the same. Now, this is a little bit strange, but I do think about like daily life routines a lot. Just maybe because I'm a mom and I'm always having to think about my baby's routine, and how like at this time we always do that. And routines are awesome in the sense that everyone sort of knows what to expect, and it gives you a lot of the reinventing like stress out of the equation of the day, right? But then as the routines are largely the same for most days, some days it's a little bit different. So maybe let's just say the baby's morning nap. It sometimes happens at 10:30 a.m., but sometimes happens at 11 a.m. Sometimes it's really early at 10 a.m. Sometimes it stretches on to like 12 p.m. But then it's like there is going to be a morning nap. It's just a little bit different at the way it starts or finish or how long it is, but mostly is around that same time. So it's the same. Sometimes we have dinner at this time. Sometimes we have dinner a bit earlier, sometimes dinner a bit later, but it's around that kind of a range. So I hope that sort of explains how it's the same. It's kind of like a theory or a concept that we have in our life and also in music, where you want to have that sense of familiarity, where you have that same motive, but then it gets boring or almost mechanical if you do it the same way every time. Sometimes it doesn't fulfill the harmony laws, and that's why you have to change a little bit. So yes, Robert, I hope this answers your question on why we alternate the patterns. Now, there is no real rule or formula as to whether we change it every third bar, every second motive. You just kind of use your discretion. And look, I know this is all very kind of conceptual and it's not very clear, like very easy to apply. But Robert, if you have any questions on how to vary your motives, you're very welcome to record something like your attempt at playing something and varying it and sending it, sharing it with a Facebook group or even to my email directly. And then I'll be very happy to give you some feedback on how you can make that even better. So really, really hope that this answered your question. Now then, Robert had one last question that I will answer from here, and that is, when you are playing suspension licks, and this is a great question, I love this one, where do they fit in the rhythm? Do they get counting on a beat of any of the subdivisions, or do you not count them and just fit them in somewhere? So a suspension lick is, I guess I'm going to just show you guys on the screen here. So something like, oh, why would you want to quit now? Sorry, guys. I need to restart my Chordy app. It's a great software, but it's also a little bit unstable. So here it is, just restarting, and I'm just keeping it to the key of C. And I know I need to reshare my screen on YouTube. So let me just do that right now. Cool. There it is. So I'm sharing my screen again on YouTube. You can see my keyboard. And basically, a suspension lick would be something like, now let's turn down that pad, shall we? So, and I really don't like that suspension highlight, so I'm just gonna turn that off. Okay, so that's a suspension lick, right? And then what I would recommend you do is to play that, for example, if it's the GA, the A is the main harmony of the moment. You would primarily actually want, because that's really the main harmony. But then you want to create that G, which is the suspension. The G is the one that adds the interest. However, the G should be played really quick. And you could think of it as a grace note. So a grace note is something that I learned as a classical pianist. The cool Italian name for it is acciaccatura, although I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Acciaccatura, perhaps. And basically, it's kind of like a, it's like you want to play it really, really short. But then you do want to play it only at the very moment of the chord. So if it was an F chord and you've got to play it at like beat 1, like a 1, 2, 3, like for example, right? Then I'll play that G, A, the G being as quickly as possible, but still have to play it at the moment when the F is supposed to go. So like, yep, so I hope that answers your question. It should be really quick. So yes, that's how I'll fit it in. But I love it. It's a really good question, and I appreciate that. I am done with answering Robert. I also don't seem to see any other questions on our Facebook group. So you know what, guys? That concludes our live Q&A today. Thank you so much if you've been watching or if you are watching the replay. I really hope it helped. I am just going real quick to see our YouTube and live chat. And I'm just looking through your comments. Okay, so Ryan, Dominic, and Lucas, thank you so much for your questions. Ryan, just answer real quick. I can't answer your questions in depth, but no, I don't have any native instruments. Dominic, thank you so much for your very, very kind and encouraging comments. Can I have MainStage on iPad instead of an iMac? I do not know of MainStage being on iPad, so I think the answer is no for the moment. Lucas asks, you know the keyboard intro for Hillsong Your Name High? And yes, I do, but I can only demonstrate it for you if you are an Inspired Keys Academy member. So Lucas, go ahead to inspiredkeys.com/join and join us in the Academy, and I'll then be really happy to answer your questions, because I can't answer everybody's question if you're not an Academy member. That will take up a ton of time. Guys, thank you so, so much again. Really appreciate that you joined me. It is springtime in Melbourne, Australia. The weather is kind of crazy. It gets quite warm in the afternoon, but then in the morning, which is around the time that I'm doing this live Q&A, it does get pretty cold, which is why I'm dressed like this. And what's exciting is we will be going back to Singapore for just about like 10 days. And we're going to bring the baby along. It's a little bit stressful, so pray for us that the baby, our baby's going to be nice and cooperative on the flight, able to sleep, because they are sort of night flights. And the next live Q&A should be sometime middle of October, and I shall broadcast the live Q&A dates really soon inside the Academy. In the meantime, guys, thank you so, so much. I really hope this live Q&A helped you, and God bless you wherever you are. Have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're watching. Thank you. God bless, and I look forward to answering your next Worship Keys questions in the next live video. Bye.